we have a Mike. Mike is a Senior Director, Cyber and Technology Risk Management from RBC. And we have Seyed, Director, Security and Privacy Risk Consulting at RSM Canada. We also have Rob and Radu join the panel discussion. Let's start with Mike. Mike, can you talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. I listened to before a couple of people there saying about 20 years. So I've been in the business for 40 years now. So I've been around the block. That's hence the silver hair. So I spent about 40 years in security. Started off in audit. Moved my way into security operations because I was basically told, do you want to find issues or do you want to fix issues? And I decided, I wanted to fix issues. So I moved into operations, worked for a large technology outsourcing company, which was a great experience because it broadened my knowledge to beyond financial services into a number of other industries and the issues that they had. And one of the things that I've learned is you can learn from other industries, which it comes in handy. And I am now at RBC, very fortunate to work there because I'm now part of the governance function and working as part of a much larger team that in effect is a microcosm of the entire bank, all on one floor. We've got the expertise from across the bank right there. We're working closely with business people. And that to me is a critical aspect that makes what we do for a living real. We're in the business of banking. We're not in the business of technology, needless, suffice to say. And as a result, if for us to be effective, we need to understand the business.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mike. And so we have Seyed. Can you talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. Thanks so much, Bryan and Mike. So, name is Seyed Hejazi. I'm a director at RSM Canada's Security and Privacy Risk Practice. And I've been with RSM just shy of 2 years now, and I come essentially from the cybersecurity background. All my career I've spent in cybersecurity consulting with various consulting firms, including some of the big four. Where before joining RSM, I was actually with EY, and I was leading the cyber risk second line of defense for financial service organizations. And now at RSM, I'm leading primarily, among other things, the cyber risk strategy and compliance pillar of the service. The time that I've spent in consulting, really, I've touched many different things, including security operations. I've touched privacy. I've touched governance and compliance aspects. But that's from the day job, and also the kind of, I guess, not a fun fact, but another fact about myself is I teach at the University of Toronto within the School of Continuing Studies. I teach cybersecurity related courses. So very happy to be joining this panel and looking forward to our discussion today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Seyed. Rob and Radu, I introduced you guys. Now it's your turn to talk a little bit about yourself, but it need to be very quick. So let's start with Rob first.
Okay, so that was a great introduction you gave me earlier, so I can't really add too much to that. I would say one thing, this idea of identity and security, I find it really fun. I'm really looking forward to the discussion tonight because I think it's such a vibrant area that is also so important, but crosses so many areas. So looking forward to a great conversation.
Excellent. And a good business to go, right?
Yes.
All right. Radu, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been with Microsoft for just over 24 years. 24 years and a month. Pretty much spent my whole career with Microsoft, spent time in Microsoft consulting services, going through, back in the day was email integration, then directory integration, and that took me into this, the compliance and risk management world when I moved into the collaboration side. And I would say from a compliance perspective, it is one of the most exciting areas at Microsoft. It is a growing concern with all of our customers, especially with, again, all of the privacy rules and regulations that are coming about. And then also a lot of recognition that's been in the marketplace for a while of how an organization, everyone in an organization has to contribute to that compliance and risk management area.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Radu. So as you can see, for our panel members, they bring their unique background, the experience and the insights. They can also address probably the same question, but from different angles, from their own experience and the insights. So that's a perfect opportunity. Let's talk about governance for today. And the topic for this panel is called the industry insights of a strong governance foundation. So that's a kind of a match to our event theme. All right, so I will be your moderator. So I'm the founder of Cyber Tech and Risk. All right, so my job really is, one is ask a question. The other is to monitor whoever want to submit your questions. I pick those questions and on behalf of you, ask our panel members. All right, so my first question about the governance, and that's a very interesting question actually, is what are some misconceptions about the security governance, which also means what is not security governance?
So Bryan, I absolutely love that question when you ended up posing it, because it's one of the first things that I'm always dealing with every time I have a discussion with anybody, at the bank. One of the things that drives me crazy is people tend to think of governance as an inhibitor. It's like the opposite of no. These are the people who say, no, you can't do this, and no, you can't do that. And I look at it more as an enabler. Okay, and by when I say that, if the more you're able to govern what you're doing, the more risks that you're going to be able to take, because you're able to manage those risks, monitor them, and make sure that they don't realize into something that's too big for you to handle. It's also, I think about agile. I love the agile concept. Just like any sports person, the more you practice, the more you understand, where your various teammates are going to be, the more you know what's going on around you, the more governance you have, the more chances you're going to be able to take. You can do blind passes, the person's going to be there. That's what governance is all about. So to me, it's an enabler. It's not an inhibitor.
Excellent. That's a very important keyword. It's an enabler. And you also actually mentioned another interesting topic as agile, right? So a lot of people think governance slow down things, but you also put in the way to how can we make that as agile as possible. All right. Any other want to add on this?
Sure, I'll jump in, Bryan. I think it's a great point, because I think governance done right is an enabler. It accelerates business, right? Because if we know what we need to do properly, right? We know the risks, we know how to mitigate the risks, we know what we need to do from a governance perspective. We're streamlining operations, right? And we're avoiding the issues that come when you don't apply good governance, right? When you have SOD violations, when you have audit findings, those things stop you. You're stopped in your tracks and you're dealing with them. That's taking away from the day-to-day operations of your business, right? You're reactive, you're not proactive. So I think it's a great approach, because governance provides that proactive nature. I think one of the misconceptions beyond that, and it's sort of in legal, that is governance used to be seen as a complete afterthought. Right? I'm going to implement my technology, even my identity information, and then I'll generate some reports later, and I'll review the reports, and that's governance. No, you're completely reactive at that point as well. Governance needs to be embedded from the beginning, like security. We went through this with security a number of years ago. Security used to be an afterthought to application development. Now we embed security in the development at the front end. Do the same thing with governance, you reap huge rewards.
Very good point. We need to be proactive on that one rather than just wait after everything done. Then we think about governance, the patch the things. All right, cool. Radu and Seyed, any comments on that?
I would just add a quick thing to what everyone else said. I think what I've seen, and specifically actually now that I'm with RSM looking into more mid-market clients, assisting mid-market clients, is a lot of people think that governance is not really for the tactical and pragmatic people and tactical teams. They think we run a tactical team, we run a pragmatic team, we are all about technology, we are all about implementation, go, go, go. Governance is not going to help me. So that's, and specifically, I see that a lot within the mid-market. So I think that's another essentially misconception that needs to be resolved for mid-market environments to grow.
Yeah, it's not just the boss or the board members need to worry about governance. Right, so implementation team also need to consider that one. All right, cool. Radu, anything to add to that?
No, I think everyone has already said it. I mean, risk management is the most important part, right? And that's what you're doing. You're mitigating risk. It's not everything. Risk is inherent into any operation, any business, any technology implementation. Knowing how to manage it, right, and mitigate it. And that's what data governance allows you to do, or sorry, governance frameworks allow you to do, is very important. I think, and it doesn't have to be an onerous system. Again, just that's the way you kind of sell governance in organizations. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So speaking of a cell governance, in other words, get a buy-in from the your sponsors from organization. So let's talk a little bit about why governance is so crucial, specifically for your security program, cybersecurity program. So the program, there are so many, right? So you can talk about, I think Rob talked about like identity program. Radu talk about data program. There'll be other program like a network, like a cloud, like different areas, right? So they're all kind of solutions, process, and technologies. But why governance is so crucial to all of them?
I'll take that.
To build that foundation. Seyed, yeah.
Right, sure. So I think in my view, governance is essentially the glue that sticks all of these bits and pieces together. If you're looking at a comprehensive cybersecurity program, we're looking at, as you just mentioned, different domains. We're looking at network security, we're looking at cloud, we are looking at identity and whatnot, privacy and all that. So the governance is essentially, that middle hub and the glue that sticks all these pieces together. So we have a comprehensive, well-flowing program that, all these components within this program talk to each other, understand each other, and at the end, the objective really is to ensure that the objectives of the cybersecurity program are well aligned with the objectives of the business. Otherwise, the security program is going to look like something that is stopping the business, that is always something that people see as a hurdle, as opposed to helping the business grow.
Excellent. The glue or blueprint or like a big picture or put integration, right? So that's a very important concept there. Okay. Anyone else want to?
Yeah, I guess I'd add to that from a tactical or implementation perspective. As we look at all those technologies, as I mentioned, it's zero trust or any of these other technologies or processes and frameworks we want to use to secure our environments, right? It's great we can lock them all down, but we still need to give access to the right people at the right time. And for that, I need that context. Who are these people? What's their relationship with the organization? What should they be allowed to access and when? My governance controls sort of give me that information. All of my security technologies are going to leverage that. Should I allow Rob to access the VPN Sunday at midnight? Yes or no? Who is he? Why is he coming in Sunday at midnight? Why is he trying to access the ERP system and change payroll information or payment programs for vendors? So all of that security technology that we're having implemented, it needs something to feed it the data about the people and the controls. And I think that's what governance provides, right? You build on top of it as you go.
Yeah, I think that I think that's a great point, Rob, because you know, for a while there in a previous job, I went through about 6 bosses in the course of about 5 years, through no fault of mine, I might add. And as a result, each time I went through, and I was the head of the security function, each time I went through, I had to explain to my new boss what I did for a living. I had a deck with 3 slides in it. It had a vault door, it had a key, and it had a bunch of people dressed in orange jumpsuits by the side of the road. So I said, my job is to protect things, okay, from people who shouldn't be able to see it. My job is to let those who do need to be able to get at it, for them to be able to get at it easily. So no inhibiting of that. And the last thing is to keep you out of one of those orange jumpsuits. That to me is why this is crucial. Is we got to enable people to be able to do their job, stop people from who shouldn't be able to get at the stuff from being able to get at it, and then keep the right people out of jail, including ourselves. Right? If we did that, we're successful.
That's a wonderful point. All right, Seyed and Radu, anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good. Yep, I started first.
It's the orange jumpsuit that did it, right, guys?
Yeah, so I think that's a perfect thing.
That's a really good point, because usually when we look at it, it's really the reputation of the company, but you make it very personal with the orange jumpsuit. Yeah.
Wonderful. And what I can hear from the last question really is you mentioned something like we need to put things on the table, need to be transparent, explicit, let people know what you need to do, what you shouldn't do, all those things, right? So maybe that's a policy or governance area, but need to be that transparent. Otherwise, people get confused. They don't have I think that's a purpose also for the governance to putting things together. All right, let's move to another question here. So, okay, so we talk about the reason why governance is so important, some misconception. Okay, now we need to implement governance program. Where should we start? And especially for large organization, you probably already have something like established. But for the small and medium-sized company, if they want to build this one, right? So where should we start to build this solid foundation for the governance? Anyone can start.
Well, I'll jump in right away, and you guys can follow. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of it is around what do you need to control? What is it? What does your environment look like from a regulatory perspective, from a good practices, best practices in your own governance, your business best practices, right? And then combining that with, an understanding of who needs access to what to do their job, right? To effectively do their job, right? And that allows you to start combining them, right? And finding that overlap where there are some circumstances where I have to give additional access. There's a risk to giving that access. Who do I get in the business to review and approve that? Right? So I think at the starting point, it's what are you affected by? Like, what do you have to adhere to, in other words, with your governance controls? And then how do you get the information about the people and the applications to put a framework in place to adhere to those? Right? So it doesn't really start with an IT problem, right? I think governance really starts with a business side problem, right? And then how do we leverage technology to help us address that problem?
All right, to satisfy business needs and the business operation process. All right, cool.
So I'll piggyback on what just Rob mentioned here, but I will extend it beyond the governance, the access governance, if you will. So essentially, I fully agree with the part that this is really a business conversation. So for a successful governance program, I think whatever that role is, if you are a director of information security or a CISO or anyone who owns the security function, you need to make sure that you understand the business. You talk to different business group owners, business unit owners, and understand what security means for them. I think that's where you got to start. You have to understand what is important for them, what keeps them awake at night, what type of data they deal with on a day-to-day basis within their group, and what is it that they think security can do for them. Then when you understand that, you can extend, you can go, structure your governance program based on perhaps, frameworks or standards out there, like, NEST CSF or ISO or whatever that is. You can start building that. But before you do that, you need to understand what the business says.
Yeah, the acumen of the business, the bigger picture. What do you try to solve? Right. All right. Okay. Mike and Radu.
So I guess for me, I think it is definitely a case of understanding the business. I go back to, a couple, as I've said before, is if you don't understand what the business is of the company you're in, then whatever it is that you have to say really is not going to hold, too much attention from anybody. Key thing is to also be building up something that allows you to be able to communicate why it is important to other people. So it's that, and we said a couple of times about marketing. It's about marketing what this is about. One of the things that I'm constantly dealing with is getting the message across to people. You're not doing this for me. You're not doing this to keep me off your back. Okay, you're doing, if this is done well, you're doing it for yourself. And once you get people into that mindset, then this is going to work. People will they will, if it's going to be good for them, they will continue to do it. So it's building a structure that gets that message across.
Yeah, get the message across is very, very important. Radu, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's part of the data governance framework that I was presenting, the vision and strategy. And I know that sounds very high level, but that vision and defining it and getting the stakeholders to buy into it, again, it helps drive the purpose of governance, right, within any organization. And governance, I go back to the point that was made earlier. Everyone thinks it's a big issue, like, oh, we have a governance program that's being implemented, right? What are we going to do? Everyone stops in their tracks, and we have to wait, and we've done something bad, and so on and so forth. No, it's not at all about that. It is about keeping people out of trouble and enabling them even further, right, with the right tools by operating in a different in a way that keeps the whole organization out of business, out of issues or problems. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, so now we touch on the why governance and the importance of governance, how we start with a governance program. Let's flip the coin a little bit. Talk about what kind of major challenges when you implement governance. From your previous experience, you can see what kind of major roadblocks you probably will encounter. There are probably many from many areas, but if you can name like one you think like a very important or you need to pay attention to, that would be great. Actually, Radu, you start first.
Yeah, so with that one, I would say I think that the term is boiling the ocean. So when you start with the governance program and you start going through the stakeholders and everyone says, oh, we need this and we need that, and kind of everything piles on. I liked Mike's agile approach. It is you have to go to an agile approach because governance, it's an ongoing process. It's not a set it and forget it, right? So I think the issue a lot of times is organizations will try to boil the ocean. So you have to have someone very driven to say, no, this is going to be implemented in this phase, and then we're going to review it, revisit it, and then and so on and so forth, implement that waterfall model, right? But yeah, boiling the ocean, I think, is one of the issues.
You try to please everyone in one shot and within like 1 or 2 months. That's a kind of like a big take to please. Yeah. All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think there was a point that Rob made before about and we all kind of agreed with this, is the concept of bolting on security. At the back end of a project, suddenly somebody realizes, wow, yeah, we probably need security over this, which is highly expensive and very it's unforgiving when you do it that way. It's the same thing with governance. Is people who deal with governance as an afterthought or as a sideline, that's not effective. And one of the things that we're definitely pushing towards is to get people that you do the governance as in the moment. Okay, the key thing is being able to document what you're doing and all the rest of that. I mean, I think back to when I was in operations. It's the same thing. You go to implement a change. Doing all of the documentation after the change goes in, not very effective at all, particularly if you wait a couple of weeks before you do that. You do it in the moment, you get it out of the way, you do it while it's fresh in your mind, and it makes it real if you do it that way. So I think to me, it's ensuring that people aren't doing governance as an afterthought or as a last minute, oh, we better do that before the auditors come in. Because if you do it that way, then you're lost.
Yeah, so that's very important, the timing. I think that's actually matched one of the comment I think Rob mentioned, the afterthought, right? So you have to do it as early as possible rather than wait to the last minute. Okay, Seyed and Rob?
Sure. I'll just add two quick, I guess, points, and those are primarily, I guess, more tactical points that I've seen, specifically within the smaller organizations. The number one is lack or insufficient authority for whoever is leading the cybersecurity program. When that happens, the security guy or girl is not going to have enough power to run things. They're going to be looked at someone who's like, okay, you're a part of IT, and you come in when there is, a malware. Let's talk at that point, right? So without that authority, I think that person cannot really progress the governance program. And that also leads to another problem, which is lack of resources for the security program, which leads to all of the security resources fighting fire every day and being burnt in within the operational day-to-day activities. So that person is named as CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, but everything that they are doing is essentially fighting fire every day, trying to find out what's happening. So they don't have time and resources to really put that governance program together and strategize. Yeah, so a number of different factors, but they are all interrelated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a resource, and also do you empower your CISO or empower your security team or the governance team to do the job right? So that's a very big challenge in the overall industry. Rob, you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I think a challenge that I've seen as we implement good governance in the organization and we are doing our reviews and our violation management, it is putting more workload on people, right? So let's talk about certifications. I have to review, as a manager, I have to review my staff's access and approve or revoke certain access as part of the campaign process, right? Just good governance. But if I also have to review the contractors, and I also have to review bot access or RPA access, I'm adding this review of all this different stuff to these people. And you're getting this idea with some organizations of certification fatigue, right? I have to review large volumes of information, and you want to prevent them from just going, yes, 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 I'm busy, just say yes to everything and we're good. Right? So to combat that or try and alleviate that challenge, I think it's really important to bring some intelligence to that information. Like, how can we provide some automation but intelligence? So if I'm reviewing it, is this high risk or low risk access? Has anything changed since the last time we reviewed this person? If not, it's an easy answer, right? Maybe giving recommendations, based on some AI or machine learning. Can we give recommendations about this access item? Should we approve it or not? And why, right? So helping to alleviate that certification fatigue or extra work we're asking people to do when we implement governance, I think is really important. And it is a challenge I'm seeing with a lot of organizations.
Definitely, yeah. All right. Okay, so I do see a couple of questions from our audience, and two of those questions I think are all related to one topic called communication. And I think there's a question from Victoria. So really as to how do you stay, you need to communicate with your policy, your overall framework with other teams. For example, you need to align with the key stakeholders and subject matter experts. How do you keep them up to date or current? Another question, I think, from Mike, ultimately, how do you kind of communicate the concepts, the governance or risk management to your C-suite, right? So the board members, the CISO, or like a CIO or CEO. So I view those two kind of communication related to your all stakeholders. So what's your view on that one, your experience on that?
So one of the areas that I'm responsible for the bank is all of our cyber and IT policies and standards. You know, the key thing that we've learned over the last number of years, and it was one of the, like, soon after I took over that area, the one thing I always used to hate in operations is when people would tell me how to do my job without asking me what I did for a living. And so that's a key thing that we make sure that we're bringing in the operational people. We don't want to come up with a policy or standard that, in effect, as soon as we put it in, it is not operational, right? And so because I've had that happen to me, and so there's a constant line of communication back and forth with the operations people. In the end, we're the ones who own the standard, but we do work very closely with them to make sure that once again that they can do it once and they can come up with a control structure that supports it. That is critical. And so we've got a number of we also identify who are the people who are probably going to be the most impacted and who are the people who are most vocal. You get them on side first, and once they're on side, their ability to vocalize their views begins to work to your advantage rather than against you, right? So you make sure that you've got a good marketing campaign done through those folks. If you can do that, then it works out well.
Excellent. You need to get some influencers in other teams as well, right? Cool. Anyone else want to comment on this?
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right, thanks. So what I wanted to say is two things. Like, I mean, to answer both questions essentially. The first thing I wanted to mention is I think the question is, how do you communicate the governance and the risks with the C-suite? I think if you are trying to communicate the risks with the C-suite, you're actually not starting off the right base. That's the C-suite who should own the risks, and that's the C-suite who should disseminate those that information, the risk the risk appetite and understanding of the risk down through the staff and mid management. So that's the first thing that I believe should happen. The second thing is, in order for you to keep everyone up to date, I think one of the things that you can do is to establish an information security governance committee, which would include business owners and different perhaps C-suite members from across the organization. People from the data side, or data governance, people from privacy, legal counsel, HR. So if you include leaders of all these functions within that information security governance committee or cybersecurity governance committee, it doesn't matter what you want to call it, some sort of a committee that brings all of these people together, then that's where you can start having meaningful discussions, and then those people are responsible for the downflow of the information.
Excellent. You need to put something on their agenda as well, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Rob and Radu?
Well, I think one of the things that Mike talked about earlier was, it's not about the risk. We have to do this or we'll be in violation of our PCI or SOX controls and we'll be in big trouble. It's what's the value to these people, to our influences, to our champions, right? the value of the governance program, of doing the certifications. How does it help them, right? So if you can demonstrate the business value, right, both to them and to the executives you need to talk to, they're more willing to listen. That if you're just, I used to call it with security, you're selling insurance. You got to do this because something might happen, right? They're less likely to listen than if you're driving business value. Right?
You need to speak on their language and sell their benefits, right? Cool. Radu?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of engaging with the executives, a lot of them understand, I find, the risks, but I like Rob's selling. It's like selling insurance. Things may happen down the road. I do think that there's definitely a business value benefit that can be drawn from every single governance program, and those should be focused on communication, where you look at whether it's technology related, sorry, whether it's business related data, security, whatever the case may be, that helps. I would also say that within the past year and a half, I can tell you that security and compliance has been on the minds of a lot of organizations, right? Especially with everyone working remotely, and then a lot of organizations not quite ready for that work. A lot of their employees not quite ready for that work, and that's where you see a lot of issues. So yeah, it's business value basically.
All right, cool. Because this is also what you mentioned, Radu, actually lead to the next question, right? So we talk about why and how. We also want to look at a little bit about what's happening next or in the future. Really is about some of the industry trends you observe at this moment for the specific to security governance. It could be on the technology side, like for example, some of you already mentioned like AI, machine learning, all those cool technologies. It could also be on the regulation, privacy, compliance side, right? So all the COVID-19 because of work from home. So what do you see the industry is going for next maybe a year or so for the security governance?
Yeah, so I can start off, I think. So besides the AI machine learning, which I just think is cool, I think one of the things that we're seeing is a bit of a decentralization. So I'm using Azure, I'm using AWS, I'm using GCP to host my applications and my systems. I'm relying on their platforms. I'm using an extensive array of SaaS applications, right? How do we make sure we're applying governance controls in those environments? We don't own the Amazon environment. We lease it, rent it, how you want to look at it. But how do I make sure the controls are in place there? Right? How do I look at the SaaS side? How do I do some SaaS management around who's accessing which SaaS applications? What data are they sharing? What data are they putting outside the organization? Right? Even things like Box on the data governance side and the cloud drives. So I think that's becoming a big area, and understanding how we apply our organization's controls, right, into those other environments is a big concern.
Decentralize the complex environments, not only on-premise and cloud, but multi-cloud and different environments, right? So how do you, if you have a data spreading everywhere or identity everywhere, so how do you control that one? All right, cool. Anyone else?
I would say from the technology perspective, I think that's not really a trend. I mean, it's not something new, but use of GRC tools, governance, risk, and compliance tools, is being increased, and it's kind of becoming a little bit, I would say, more mainstream, as opposed to a few years ago, where mostly enterprises and big organizations, such as we have Mike here from RBC. I mean, those were really the end users of GRC tools. But I see a trend where more mid size organizations and small to medium sized businesses are moving towards use of GRC tools for their internal processes and governance. Having all those policies and standards in one location, being able to share, being able to assign audit tasks and map controls back to policies and all that. Not everyone is going to use the biggest names and biggest vendors in the GRC tools because of the cost, obviously, but there are also mid-market focused GRC tools that are being utilized.
All right, leverage the governance, risk, and compliance tools. All right, cool. And Mike?
Yeah. Yes, I guess I'm gonna work off of something that Radu said a little bit earlier in terms of privacy and bringing that into the fold. One of the things that I'm quite pleased with working at RBC is we've got very close connection with our privacy officer, with the information management team, who are focusing in on the integrity of data, data protection, which is the other aspect of it. And in the past, each of those groups would kind of work separately. And we're now beginning to realize that it is much more effective if we work together, because we're all taking a look at a different facet of the data. The other thing too is we used to find that people would shop for the best, the opinion that would be most favorable for them. So they may go to privacy, they may go to somebody else, and now we're much more of a coordinated front, so that it's almost like one stop. We know, what, probably the best person I can bring in is this individual from privacy, or this person in from info management. It's that close connection and the partnership that I think is making us much more powerful, and we're able to deal with things a lot quicker.
Excellent. The collaboration among the different team and the stakeholders.
Yeah.
All right, Radu.
Yeah, I think it is that benefit to the organization when everyone comes together. I say in terms of trends, there's a couple of them that we see, at least from a privacy perspective, that Microsoft specifically is making a lot of investments in identifying or putting in place privacy programs and using GRC tools. We have groups that are focused specifically on taking standards and regulations that are very legal language by nature, and translating those to technology terms, right? So it's easier for organizations to implement. And this is very important, again, very much accentuated by the pandemic, because typically after a pandemic, when everyone is, during the pandemic, everyone is trying to figure out how to work, how to share data, how to work with data, and so on and so forth. There's usually a lot of lawsuits that follow because of various, I guess, inappropriate access to data by employees that get exposed to either other employees or customers, even worse, right? So, yeah.
All right. Yeah, so definitely COVID-19 pandemic changed the landscape. On one side, accelerate the digital transformation. Yeah. On the other side, bring a lot of new challenges and to the landscape. All right, cool. We come to almost the end of our panel discussion. We always reserve one last important question, which is talent development and career development. Because security governance is a very interesting area, and quite many people are, especially for people, they think, okay, I may not from the heavy technology background, but I want to tap into the cybersecurity domain or governance or risk domain. Security governance actually is a very good field to looking into that. So speaking of a career development, what do you see? But this might need to be a little bit quicker because we come to the end of the panel. So if you can have some quick comment on the talent development skills and requirements, I would much appreciate it. And I would start with Seyed because he is also the teacher at University of Toronto. So Seyed, go ahead.
Sure, thanks so much. Yeah, I'll make it quick. I think the most important skill for someone within the security governance is the soft skills, including relationship building skills and translating technical content for non-technical individuals and non-technical language. There is going to be also another point, which is resource management skills, because a big part of the governance programs is defining roles and responsibilities, assigning accountability. So understanding how to do resource management is a big plus. And I don't want to downplay the overall understanding of the technology, but as you said, you don't need to be a technologist necessary in order, or knowing all the ins and outs of different technologies like a SIEM product or IDS and IPS to do governance. But the high level understanding of these technologies is definitely going to help.
All right, cool. Communication, we're back to some communication question, right? So how do you communicate? How do you integrate and do the resource allocation management? Those are very important. Okay, cool. Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction and not quite go against the norm here, but I do believe that there needs to be a strong operational background. Okay, there needs to be. It's best if somebody has the experience in operations and has some of the scars to prove it. I do agree. You don't have to be a master of every single part of technology, but it definitely helps if you've got an anchor in one place, and you have an anchor in one type of technology, or even one aspect of it, and you have the ability to be able to then extrapolate from that bit to be able to then come up with the analogies of how that relates to other things. So I do believe that there's got to be a core there that you can then build on.
Yeah, so from specialist to generalist, kind of like you need to have something to start with, right? So,
Yeah.
so to tap into that. Doesn't matter it's from technology angle or from the business angle, but you need to start with something. You cannot say, okay, I have nothing, but I just passionate about this field. All right, cool. Rob, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think one of the great things about getting into the governance realm within IT is it covers so many different areas. I think, Mike, you mentioned earlier, the team you work with, basically it's like a microcosm of the entire bank. Right? You have people that are specialists in all kinds of different things. So you can come at this from a technology. If you're someone who really likes technology and you want to learn that, you can learn the technology and how you apply those controls in the various technologies. If you're more of a business analyst type person, you need to understand what is the business and what are the controls and those compliance regulations, and then be able to talk to the IT people and say, how do I take these controls and put them into these IT environments, right? So I think the option is there to take different approaches into the governance area depending on what you like to do, right? Do you like to talk to people? Do you like to go to meetings? Do you like to articulate business problems? Or do you like to get your hands on the technology, right? So shouldn't think it's just one way or the other, right? I think it's that's one of the great things about it.
You also need to consider your personal traits. What do you like to do, right? So in the long term.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Radu, what's your point there?
Yeah, I definitely. You need to have passion, right, for it. Otherwise, it's not going to keep you engaged. And I think we were talking about this the other day, Bryan. It's very important to have business acumen and have a well founded understanding of the reasons behind governance, right? So it's there's this concept of emotional intelligence that comes into play, where if you don't like something, it really irks you and you're against it, you have to have the intelligence of understanding why is this in place, right? There's reasons why, and it could be technology related, it could be processing related, it could be both together, but again, understand what that is to an organization, because it will help you be successful. It will also give you the the battle scars that Mike was talking about. But yeah, it will definitely give you a better understanding of and a better way. You become better at governance, I would say.
Excellent. So you need to bring that bigger picture.
Yes.
At the end of the day, really is the governance. How do you satisfy the process, people, and the technology needs, right? So you need to have that kind of across those domains and build a policy to satisfy the thing. So that's a great input. All right, so that's pretty much the end of our panel discussion. And again, Rob from SailPoint, Radu from Microsoft, Mike from RBC, and Seyed from RSM Canada. And I would ask everyone online, give them a virtual applause or pat. Thank you very much for our panel members come to share with your insights.